Next, I'm excited to say Amy Allen from Legal Aid Resources is here to speak with us. Amy is the supervising attorney for the Fort Worth branch of Legal Aid of Northwest Texas. Prior to joining Legal Aid in the fall of 2018, her experience was largely in criminal law. She did time with Tarrant County, Dallas County, the City of Dallas, and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the North District. When she was in Washington, D.C., she was a director for Prison Fellowship Ministries. The center of her world is her son, Leland, and during her spare time, you can probably find her at a baseball game. Little League to the majors, but her favorite will always be her beloved LSU Tigers. And with that, Amy, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to figure out how to start this really quickly. We already sort of practiced. And hopefully it will work. Okay, I need to just give you a quick little 2-minute who we are at Legal Aid. I want to make sure that that you guys understand where we're coming from. So we are Legal Aid of Northwest Texas. That my information is here, but I'll give it to you at the end as well. We are a nonprofit law firm. We don't work for the government. We are supplied by governmental funds, but we are also supplied by grant funds. But we are a nonprofit private law firm that we strive to meet the legal needs of, I don't know, 1.5, 2 million eligible clients. We serve 114 counties. So here is a picture of the 114 counties that we serve. We basically go from Midland, Odessa, all the way up to the Panhandle, across to southern Waxahachie, and over to McKinney, and then all the way up to the Red River. So we have a huge service area. We're the 5th largest legal aid in the country, I think.
Amy, we didn't see a map. I don't know if you switched over to a map or have one in your presentation. Oh, okay. Just making sure.
What does it say?
It has your title slide, Amy Allen, Legal Aid of Northwest Texas.
Well, I am sliding through and it is not sliding through.
Oh, yeah, on the side, it looks like it's slide 20 through 23. Oh, that's your last slide, isn't it?
It's not in slideshow mode, Amy.
It is for me.
Maybe you're sharing, or do you have 2 monitors? Maybe you're sharing a different screen.
Okay, now can you see it just not as a slideshow?
It looks the same. Oh, there we go. Now it's going through the slides.
But it's not in slideshow mode?
No.
Okay, we're going to stick there because at least I know what that looks like.
Perfect.
If I can get it to y'all, that's fine with me.
And there's the map. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. I appreciate it. Okay, so there's the map, and we serve from, like I said, Midland, Odessa, all the way over to McKinney, as far south as Waxahachie, San Angelo, and then all the way up through the Panhandle. It's a really fairly large area. We have about 15, 16 offices that serve all those different counties. What we do is civil. We don't do any criminal, but we do a variety of civil legal matters, from family to consumer protection, environmental justice, youth rights, some probate. And as we talked about today, as we're going to talk about today's consumer as well. What we cannot do is personal injury. We don't do malpractice, assisted suicide, personal injury cases, class action, anything like that. And we don't do anything that's fee generating, and we don't do anything that's criminal law. You have to be eligible for our services. I'm not going to go into what those eligibility requirements are, but we do an income eligibility and asset eligibility. You must be a U.S. citizen or qualified under some other legal status, and you have to have a legal problem that's within our approved priorities, which the board votes on every year. And there's some specific rules within that, but there are eligibility requirements to be able to receive services from our firm. We do target certain areas, and they're listed here. Everything from bankruptcy to we have a low income taxpayer clinic that's grant funded. We do have veterans as a priority. Foreclosures and eviction is a very big part of what we try to do. We have an opioid grant right now. So those are some of the things that we have targeted areas of specialty. The application process, which is the most often question I get, we do pre-screen for those eligibility. We do a conflicts check, just like any other law firm does. We provide an intake interview. We do a staffing process. Every case is reviewed by a committee. What we try to do is, at a very minimum, provide advice or brief service if we can't provide full representation. But we get way more applications for assistance than we have attorneys that can possibly that we can possibly serve. Couple of different ways that you can apply, and I'll provide these slides to Dana. You can send them out to this group later on. You can go to legalaidtexas.org and you can apply online. You click get help and you can apply there, or you can call the legal aid line, and that number is listed on here as well. And as promised, that's my information. It's my last name, my first initial at LANWT, which stands for Legal Aid of NorthwestTexas.org. And you can get in touch with us that way. If you have somebody that you want to do a direct referral to because you're working for a specific agency and you want to do a direct referral, you can contact us and we can see if we can make that happen so that they don't have to jump through all the hoops. And sometimes that's overwhelming, especially when we're dealing with elderly clients and they've already been taken advantage of once and now we stick them on hold forever. So if that's something that is better, we are more than willing to do that. Okay, now we're going to try and see if this works. Let me know if we get to the next one. I believe this is the one I want. Okay, how are we doing?
Don't say anything yet.
Let me know. It should come up and be blue and say consumer fraud on the elderly. Oh no, it unshared.
Oh.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay,
Well,
awesome.
there it is.
So I know what we wanted to talk about today was consumer fraud on the elderly. So I really focused on that and I wanted to put that first. There are lots of scams that that I come across as affecting the elderly, not just financial, which is what we're going to talk about today, but physical abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, neglect, and even sexual abuse. And we look at the elderly population the same way that we look at the youthful population. Manage windows on all of your displays. I don't want you to do that. Okay. So they are really among the most vulnerable. So if you look at the elderly, if you look at youthful population, and you look at the disabled, those are areas of priority for us because those are the individuals that really need somebody extra looking out for them. And I know that that's what most of you guys do as well. So I really appreciate what y'all do. So let's talk a little bit about the financial scams that are affecting elderly. We have come across investment fraud and other financial scams, deceptive telephone, mail, and internet solicitations. I try to run my mother through every elderly scenario that we come up with, and I'm like, there's no way she would have fallen for that. And then 2 days later, I'll get a phone call. They called me, and if I don't send them 2 gift cards, they're going to turn off my electricity. And I'm like, you are smarter than this. She's like, but they're going to turn off my electricity. So we can't just assume that they are or aren't smart because they live in a state of fear. And the older they get, the more afraid they are that they're not going to have enough or that they're not going to have whatever they want to have. There is rampant Medicare fraud and other abuses of the healthcare system that we come across, abuses of their rights by landlords because they think that they won't be able to find somebody to help them. So they can just tell them that they have to move rather than give them a proper notice to vacate or anything else. So there's a lot of housing that goes on. And then of course there's mortgage fraud. One of my favorite stories is I had an elderly client right after I started here, about 3 months after I started. She came in on the Monday of Thanksgiving week. And she said, I did an owner finance. She spoke Spanish, so we had a language barrier to start with. And she said, I bought this property from this guy and he owner financed it. It was a 15-year note. I've paid for 13 years and now he's foreclosing on me. And I said, well, did you not make all of your payments? And she said, no, I've made all my payments. He wanted me to pay through the portal. I didn't know how to do that, but I've made all my payments, either by Zelle or by check or by cash or something. So of course I didn't believe her because then we would foreclose on your home if you hadn't made your payments. And she said, I'll go home and get all my stuff. She came back with a grocery sack full of coffee stained pieces of paper. And another attorney and I spent about 3 or 4 hours literally going through everything in this pile. And we found all but about 6 things we could tie to direct payments of her rent or her mortgage payment, as it were. And so I was very surprised and I believed her. But here was the problem. It's now Tuesday. We're off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and foreclosure day is Tuesday of the following week. So she is literally about to lose her house when we believe she has made all, if not almost all the payments. She's come real close. Certainly not close enough that this guy should say she hasn't made a payment in 3 years. That's what he alleged in the foreclosure documents. We filed a temporary restraining order. It took us all day to find him and get him get him found and served. Once we did, and he went before the judge, we got pulled off the foreclosure docket. We saved her house, but we went before the judge and he had to admit to the judge that she was current. We signed an agreement that all the payments would be made through me to his attorney and then to him so we could track them. But he said that she was current as of December. And he was literally going to just take her house because she was older. She didn't know any better and she had a huge language barrier. Well, she was smart. She sold the house as soon as she possibly could to get out from underneath him and bought a house in Irving or something. But we started doing some research on him and he has done this 5 times in the past. So he just has a pattern of looking for the vulnerable, looking for that population that he knows he can take advantage of. And that one didn't work. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. I was going simply based on the portal information. I didn't realize that $500 had been deposited into my bank account every month. Somehow or another, I missed that. It was very, very sad. So we started putting him on radar that we were going to kind of keep track of what he was doing and watching. But I was amazed and I was the one that didn't believe her when she walked in the door, because who would foreclose if you hadn't made their payments? So it happens. So if you have someone that comes in your office and says, no, they're going to foreclose on my house and I don't understand because I've been making my payments, they need to find an attorney quickly. And if they meet our requirements, they can come find us. Some of the resources I want to share with you are primarily from the Federal Trade Commission and from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They have some programs that address specific needs of seniors. They define elderly population, they define illegal taking, they give you a tremendous amount of information. And so if you're looking for information about it, I would go to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau first. So that's where I would head. And then here's a list of some of the resources. The U.S. Department of Justice website has an Elder Justice Initiative. They recommend that you report things to the bank immediately if it's coming out of their bank account, or the credit card company if it's done with the credit card company. If it's appropriate, to file a police report. And almost in every situation, they say report it to APS. Because the more we can report it and the more we can document it and the more we can show that it's a problem, the more resources will be thrown at the problem. There is a link here for justice.gov. It's the Elder Justice Find Help or Report Abuse link, and it goes directly to the link so that you can report it. You can report it to the U.S. Department of Justice, and it'll tell you everywhere else that you need to report it, including the FCC if you need to, or any place else. There's also a link for Find Help near you. I went ahead and found the Texas flyer that's on here. I'm not going to mess with my PowerPoint, but I'll show it to y'all in a minute. I did pull it up, but there's a Texas flyer on how to gain that assistance for elder abuse as well. I've included the National Elder Fraud Hotline on here, as well as the Elder Care Locator Helpline. So if you're looking for specific help for elder care for any reason, there's a helpline that you can direct them to. You can call on their behalf. And then there is a link here for the FTC Consumer Advice. We're going to go to that website in a minute, but I wanted you to have the link here since we're just going to go to that website. So before I start jumping to the internet, anybody got any questions yet? Nothing yet? Okay. I'm hoping I'm still sharing. Awesome. Okay, this is the pass it on identity theft, and I have the link in here, and I wanted you guys to know exactly how to get to this page. It's with the Federal Trade Commission under consumer advice. The link is in the PowerPoint that I'll send to Dana, and she can forward it on to you. It has specific, one is on identity theft. Here's how it works. Someone gets your personal information, runs up charges in your name. They might use your social security or Medicare number, your credit card number, your medical insurance, along with your name. Here are signs that someone's using your identity. Here's what you do. Here's how you do it beforehand.
Amy?
This is how you protect things beforehand.
We're
And then
still
if you
looking
want
at
to
the
know,
PowerPoint.
this is not a PowerPoint.
No, no, that's what's up right now. Were you
The PowerPoint
trying
is,
to, yeah. Mm-hmm.
okay, we're going to stop and start again. Now it should be a website.
There it is. Perfect.
Okay, good. So this link is in the PowerPoint, but it'll take you directly to this page. And here are the things that most elderly consumer adults in our country run into. They run into identity theft. This will give you a place that you can go if they come to you and say, can you talk to me about identity theft? It may give you a place to provide them with advice before it happens to them. Here's some of the things you can do to protect your identity. Here's unwanted calls. Do y'all ever have anybody come to you and say, oh my gosh, I get so many robocalls. I want this to go away. I don't answer the phone unless I know who it is because I get so many random calls. I probably get 9 a day from 5 different finance companies, but it's the same recorded message saying, hey, we need some final information on the documents. We're the underwriters for the loan that you applied for. We need some final information that's holding up your loan. So I need to give us a call. Same recorded voice. They're representing 5 different financial companies, and I've not applied for a loan anywhere. And I have no idea. I mean, the only way that I can deal with it is not answer it. But if my mom were to be getting those phone calls, she would be panicking, thinking someone has taken out a loan in her name. And I'm like, Mom, that's not it. They're just fishing. They are fishing for you to call them and provide that information. But our elderly population doesn't always know that. There's also a section here on impersonator scams. My computer's running really slow. There we go, impersonator scams. And it'll say you get a call or an email. It might say that you've won a prize. The prize is valued at $500,000, but there's a $250 winner's fee in order to access those funds and have them sent to you. And an elderly person who really, really needs the money for X, Y, or Z might say, oh gosh, $250 isn't anything in order for me to access that kind of money where I could help out my grandson and I could help pay for college. And they don't even realize what's going to happen. So that's another one that we come across a lot. And I'm not going to go through all these because I've already spoken for about 20 minutes and I want to talk about credit reports before we end. But this link is in the PowerPoint and you can come and look at all of these things and they're very helpful. So I'm going to turn that off for a second and I'm going to give y'all some scenarios. Some of these are real case scenarios and some of these are not. Monty is 82. Monty has moderate dementia and requires guardianship due to his worsening disease. Unfortunately, Monty never gave his only son, Samson, power of attorney. Monty also no longer has the sufficient mental capacity to execute that power of attorney. It's too late. Samson lives out of state. Monty has a personal assistant named John, and John handles all of his financial transactions for him. Samson was concerned about John's access to his father's finances, and he reviewed Monty's account statements while he was visiting his father over the summer. What do you think he found? Can y'all unmute or no?
Theft.
Yeah, theft. Yeah, straight up theft. He found out that John had taken over $3,000 from one of Monty's little used accounts. Samson immediately contacted the investment firm. This is the son. The son contacted the investment firm, local law enforcement, and Adult Protective Services for help in order to get John charged with theft and to try to work to get that money returned back to him. It's not always a stranger. Russell, 88, needed help managing his day-to-day affairs. His nephew, Jack, was out of work. I wonder why. He offered to come and live with Russell and help him while he looked for a job. Jack took his uncle to the bank saying that he wanted to protect his uncle's money, and Russell told the bank teller to add Jack to his bank accounts. Jack then downloaded a power of attorney off the internet, stuck it in front of Russell and told him to sign it, which of course Russell did because Jack is his nephew. With that power of attorney, Russell's credit card companies added Jack as a second user. When Russell's sister visited him and she asked about the situation, Russell said, well, I'm not sure, but I think that Jack may be taking a little bit of money, but that's okay because he takes care of me. She and Russell went to the bank and learned that Jack had spent considerable amounts of his uncle's money. The sister alerted bank officials. They pulled him off the account. Adult Protective Services was notified. Local law enforcement was notified. And Russell filed for an emergency civil protective order to get Jack removed from the house. So there are solutions when you need to have that done. Here's one of my favorite, and this is not a real one. This is the one you hear about all the time. Charlie, 82, received a phone call from the sheriff in New Orleans. He said Charlie's grandson had been arrested for intoxication, and to be released, the sheriff said that someone needed to pay the grandson's fine and that his parents were not home at the time. The sheriff told Charlie to wire money to an online address. After the money was delivered, Charlie got a call from someone that he thought was his grandson saying that he needed money in order to get home from New Orleans, but he was very grateful for the money he had given him to get out of jail. Charlie became suspicious when he asked the person claiming to be his grandson a few personal questions that the kid couldn't answer. And the call ended amicably. And then Charlie called a nearby FBI office to report the incident, filed a complaint with the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center online, and gave them the information. So he was out some money, but he could have been out more. And I truly believe this happens more often than not. Grandparents are marshmallowy and soft edged when they come to their grandchildren. And they might have looked at me and told, my mother might have looked at me and said, you're going to spend the night in jail and learn a lesson. My grandmother never would have done that. And so that's how they have figured this out. With AI, if they can go onto the internet and find a video and get your grandson's voice, it is amazing the things that they can do. So one of the things that we have started recommending whenever we do presentations to the elderly is have a password in your family. The password in my family is Wrigley. You know, don't forget to go feed Wrigley. And if my son were to say that to me, I would know that it was really him or that he was really in trouble. And if something comes up like this and he doesn't use the word Wrigley, I'm going to question whether it's him. And we know that's the word. If he uses it, it's either to verify to me that it's really him or it's to tell me that he's in trouble. So not a bad idea. Find a word that the grandparents would know and use that, because they could have easily said to the sheriff, go ask him what the magic word is. Go ask him what the password is. I'm happy to do this, but I need to be sure that it's him. And she never would have heard back. And then the one that we hear about all the time is the sweetheart scam. Arturo is a popular hairstylist. Sometimes it's over the internet, but sometimes it's local. He was charming and extra attentive to widows and older women, and often asked clients who seemed very well off to go out to dinner. During these meals, he would discuss his financial woes. Some customers actually gave him access to their bank accounts and said, well, you can have that just in case you need it. Not to use now, but just in case. And they trusted him. Arturo helped 3 of them manage their real estate investments, and 2 of them even made him a joint owner of their homes. When one of the customers died, the executor discovered her bank and investment accounts were totally depleted. Her home now totally belonged to Arturo, and heirlooms were missing. They had contacted Adult Protective Services, local law enforcement, and the FBI. And I have 5 pages of stories. So they are way more common than you would think. And the best way to fix them, I think, is to educate elderly in the future. So every single time you're in front of somebody, talk to them and say, if it sounds like a family member, assume it's not. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. If they've called you, tell them that you'll get their phone number. You'll have your grandson, who's a computer whiz, figure it out, and you'll call them back. And then you can call Citibank back with the number on the back of your card, rather than trust that the person who's called you is really asking for this information. It doesn't happen that direction. And the only way we're going to stop this is by educating our elderly as they get there. The last piece I want to share with you on this really is the very, very, very best way to protect them is to start talking to them about some documents that would protect them. We call them alternatives to guardianship. In Tarrant County, at least, it is very, very hard to get a guardianship. You have to really, really be in need. And I'm not upset with that because guardianship takes away a lot of our rights, takes away our right to marry. It takes away potentially our right to drive. It takes away our right to vote. There are a lot of things that I really feel like unless you really, really, really cannot make decisions for yourself, you don't need a guardianship. You may need a supportive decision-making document, which you can have with the elderly, just like you can have with somebody who is disabled and needs a guardianship. Powers of attorney that are specific or powers of attorney that are general, as long as you know what you're getting into and you pick that person. Because if you don't pick that person, the wrong person will come pick you. And there are a lot of them. There are medical powers of attorney, durable powers of attorney. There are directives to physician that tell the physicians what you really want to happen. And there are a lot of those kinds of options. So if we have time, the last piece that I've put together is on how to read your credit report. Because the other thing that I see with elderly is either they don't know how to read their credit report, they don't know how to get their credit report, or that's when they figure out somebody has done something, is if they go look at their credit report. Because if somebody steals their identity and they've lived in the same house in their car, they've driven a car that's 14 years old, they've never gone out to apply for anything new. They don't know that their credit score has dropped to 510. They don't know that there's 3 credit cards out there with $10,000, $5,000, and $32,000 worth of debt on them. But if they pulled their credit report, they would know. So do we have time to go through that, Dana?
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Okay, she's nodding. So, and we're going to do the same trick and not make it into, I don't know why it's not doing that, but I'd rather not fight it. Okay, so nod when it says credit reports, how do I read them and what do they say about me? Okay, we're there. Okay, so what is a credit report and what is your credit score? The 3 main reporting agencies, and I'm sure you guys know all this and this is information overload, but just to put it all in perspective, TransUnion, Experience, and Equifax. But this is what a credit report looks like. So the first thing it's going to have on there is personal information about the person the credit report is on. So if you run your credit report based on your social security number and a different address shows up, right off the bat, we got a problem. Somebody has done something to let credit reporting agencies know that you have moved, even though you have not moved. The second thing on here is a report summary. It's going to tell you how old your accounts are, what real estate balance you might have, and some summary of accounts. It's not going to give you any details, but it's going to give you a summary. So like on this one, there are 12 credit accounts, none that have been closed. There have been 7 inquiries. 4 of them were in the last 4 months. There's a $40,000 real estate balance. There's an installment balance, a revolving balance, those kinds of things. There's any delinquencies going on, how much you might have past due, that kind of information is all showing on your credit report. Number 3 talks about the specific accounts. So you've got American Express, Citibank, House Corp, that's your mortgage. You've got Discovery, you've got Synchronicity or Synchrony Bank, whatever it's called. There's 1,000 of them. And all of those are going to be listed and it's going to have, can you see my cursor? This is the part you might want to talk to if you look at a credit report with one of the people that you're servicing. This is going to tell you what your historical account status is. Credit reports carry up to the last 72 months of payment activity. Now there's going to be a code at the bottom of the report that tells you what the difference is between a 2 and a 1 and a dash. But what that's showing is paid on time, paid late, didn't pay at all. It's going to give you that code. But if you count all those little numbers, it will show up to 72 months of your back history. And that is one of the biggest indicators on what happens with your credit is your historical payment avenue. So if you keep on going down, you're going to have account status. You're going to have, I see right here, these say current. This one says delinquent 30 days. You're going to have whether it's past due. You're going to have what credit report bureau is reporting on it, Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, what day you opened the account, how much the monthly payment is. All of your data is going to be on here on that report. What's not on here, and a lot of people think you get it on your credit report, is your credit score. Your credit score is not necessarily on your credit report. They're tied together, but a credit report is going to give you information from all 3 credit reporting agencies, whereas your credit score you get from one agency. So you may have 3 different credit scores based on the 3 different agencies, which is why it didn't show up on a credit report. But a lot of credit cards now will let you look at it every month. You should certainly check it every year. And you can check Experian every month because they've gotten in trouble in the past and they're required to let you check it every month. So this is what's on your credit report. How do you get a copy? They are not all the same. And I know that there's freerecreditport.com or something like that, but it's not really free and they take your credit card just in case. And yeah, they're not all the same. The one we recommend, which is truly, truly free and safe and reliable, is annualcreditreport.com. You can get all 3 throughout the year. Some people will pull them all on the same day. I don't recommend that. I say pick some holidays. So pick Easter, pick July 4th, and pick Halloween or Thanksgiving and run one throughout the year. And that way, if something jumps on it, you're going to get noticed sooner. It may not be on all of them, but you've got a better chance on it. So you can call that phone number, you can go to that website, or you can mail a request to annualcreditreport.com. However your elderly client feels more comfortable, they can do any of them, but you can get them at least once a year, and most of them you can get more than once a year. So credit bureaus also require you to give they're required to give you an additional copy if one of the other things happen. If you're unemployed and you're applying for a job within the next 60 days, people are running credit reports for new jobs, you're allowed to get a copy. If you've been denied credit, so if you apply for a credit card and you're denied, they are required, if you ask for it, to give you a copy of your credit report. If you suspect there's an error due to fraud, one of the things that we talk about, I can't remember if it's in this presentation or not, is how you dispute it. If you've got your credit report up electronically, it's very easy. There's a button that you click that says, I want to dispute this. You fill it all out and they go do their thing and dispute it. And if you are disputing it, they're required to give you a new report to show that it's been off or still on, or if you've requested a fraud alert on your account. So credit score, is it arbitrary? Some people would say yes. I don't know that it really is. All the agencies do a different one, but most of them use the FICO formula, which means 30%, which is the largest percentage, is how well you have paid in the past, what your on-time reporting payment is, and if you've missed any payments. So if you do nothing else but pay all your bills on time when you're supposed to, even if you've got a ton of debt, your credit report's not going to be too bad because your history shows good, and that's 35% of your score. The debt level in comparison to your credit limits, nothing to do with your salary. But if you've got all of your credit report cards and you've got $50,000 worth of credit on your credit cards and you're at 40, 45,000, you're getting pretty close to the top. You don't have a lot of cushion. That's not going to be a good score. So that's 30%. Number of years of credit history. Obviously, my credit's going to be better than my son's because he's been getting credit for like 5 years and I've been getting credit for like 50 years. How many new accounts you have. So if you have an account, keep it if you can. My American Express I've had since the last century. It starts with a 19. That's a good thing. And then whether or not you have a variety of credit. So if you have a car note, if you have a house note, if you have a credit card, unsecured versus secured, if you have a line of credit at the bank as opposed to a loan, just a signature line of credit, the variety of credit that you have available to you counts as well. So that's kind of how they come up with it, but it's a little arbitrary. Who can see your credit report and score? Creditors can, obviously, because they're trying to give you credit. They want to increase your credit. If they gave you a credit card and you had a $1,000 limit, they want you to spend more than that. So they want to increase it. They're going to run your credit, see if it's better. If it's better, they're going to increase your credit report to 5,000. And then when you don't spend all that, they're going to increase it to 10,000. And before you know it, they've got you. Government agencies can run it. Insurance companies obviously can run it because for some reason, if you're better with money, you're going to drive a car safer. Don't understand why, but that's the truth. Landlords can run it because they want to make sure that you can pay your rent, and utility companies can require a larger deposit if they don't think you have good credit. How can I protect my credit? This is my favorite slides. I am hoping that today I share this with you and one of you learn something new that will help you. You can put a fraud alert on your credit report. It's a statement added to your report that says to the creditor, hey, Discover, if I ask for a credit card, or bank, if I'm going to buy a car and they come and say, hey, will you give her credit? Don't say yes until you talk to me. You must talk to me and check with me before you agree to and issue credit. It requires them to take an extra step to verify that it's really you that's getting that credit card, buying that car, using your information. It lasts only a year, but you can renew it every single year if you want. So in theory, if you ask for this from one, they're supposed to tell their two friends. But I recommend that you tell all three of them because they don't always talk to each other. But in theory, that's the way it's supposed to work. So this is good for a year. And it just causes the credit card company to require them to come and get you. This is the one that I have done on mine. I have done a security freeze on mine. And what it means is it prevents my credit history from being shared with any potential creditors. I can still review it, so I can still get a credit report. But if I go to buy a car, I need to unfreeze my account for the time period when I'm buying a car. Because if they go to pull my credit could be stellar, but they're never going to know it because the credit report agencies are going to say there's a security freeze on that. As soon as that happens and the little dealership guy comes back to me, I'm going to go, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. I'm sorry. I can unfreeze it. We can fix it all. It's all great. But it means if I lose my social security card or my driver's license and somebody tries to open a new credit card in my account, it can't happen because I can't even open a credit card in my account without going through a couple of steps. So I have done a security freeze on all of mine. It only prevents new accounts from being opened. So if somebody decides to use an account you already have open and run up the credit limit, you can't fix that. So if the thief is already in the Ken house, this isn't going to fix your problem. But it also lasts, I believe it lasts forever until you take it off, but you can ask for a temporary lifting. They call it a thaw. And then you have the ability to log in with a PIN or a password and control whether that's kind of on and off. So I think it's very helpful. And then the last thing is a credit lock. It's similar to a freeze. However, it's voluntary, not governed by federal or state law. So you have some fewer legal rights if something goes wrong with a lock. So I don't use the lock, I use the freeze. Okay, Houston, we have a problem. If there's a problem, what can you do? I have a late payment and the creditor calls. They use persuasive tactics and they're threatening you and everything else that's harming your credit score. We're going to report you to the credit bureau. We're going to sue you. Don't sacrifice the important for the urgent. I get that you want to have your stuff paid on time. Frances, my little old lady who's my client in my office, but it is more important that you have food on the table and a roof over your head than that you pay your Visa bill. So if you need to pay for your mortgage and you need to pay for your car and put food on the table, do that. Let your Visa card go and we'll fix it later. Damage is done at 30 days late, 60 days late, 90 days late. So if somebody comes to you and they've got 90-day late payments, their credit report's not going to get any worse, which is sad, but the good news. If you already have 90 days worth of late payment, 120 days isn't going to make it any worse. And 180 days isn't going to make it any worse. And a 30-day on a new credit card isn't going to make it any worse. It's as bad as it's going to get once you get 30, 60, 90 days late. It will get better as you get past that, but that 30, 60, 90 days is going to be on there 72 months. You have the right to dispute anything with the credit bureau that you think is wrong, that's inaccurate. And you can do that through the credit bureau or the creditor themselves that made the report, but the credit bureau must investigate it. They must look into it. They've got 30 or 45 days to do it and then get back to you. And if they, let's say it's an apartment complex that put $600 that you owed them when you moved out and you didn't pay it, and they reach out to the apartment complex. If the apartment complex doesn't send anything back that proves you actually own that, the credit reporting agency is supposed to remove it from your credit report. Supposed to. They just need to be dogged a little bit. Credit report disputing. You can dispute charges, the entire account, a wrong address, a wrong phone number, any inquiries that took place, or wrong name. So if they misspell your name, they may not be you. So you can dispute all of that. Here it is. They both will investigate. They both have to give notices within 30 to 45 days back. And the notice will state that they determined it was verified, they fixed any mistakes, or they deleted if it should be removed. So take back control, get it all together, get help from your creditors. If you've got problems, you can negotiate things with them. It's amazing when you say, I really, really, really want to fix this. Can you help me? and they can lower your interest rate, or they can tack payments onto the back. There are things that they will do that they understand that they will try to get you in a better credit score as well. Don't rush into new credit to build your score. Stabilize your financial situation first. Establish new credit slowly and with caution. This is the advice I give people when they file for bankruptcy and they've come out of bankruptcy. I'm like, go slow. Don't rush into it, because the minute you file for bankruptcy, you're going to get 30 new credit card applications in the mail. Don't take them. Try to live within your means in a debit card. Don't start building new credit yet. Once you got yourself financially on solid ground, then start doing it. Make sure the new credit reports to the agencies, because if you're going to go to all that trouble, you want the good to be reported. Some credit cards specifically don't report to the agency because they know that you're struggling. You want one that will report to the agency. And then I've got the credit reporting contact information of Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. I just know that elderly people are afraid of their credit report. And so they very, very often won't go look for it. And if they do go look for it, they don't have any idea how to read it. So a lot of information.
Ooh, yeah. Thank you, Amy.
So
That is very helpful.
I will send you the links. I'll send you the slides for this, and I will send you 2 handouts that I've kind of put together that are helpful, and you can forward them to your group.
Wow. Thank you. We appreciate it. Anybody have any questions? I don't know if are there any other faces on here?
I don't see any faces.
Aha, there's Shannon. There's Brad. All right. Do you guys have any questions, or are you just being visual? And Elva, good to see you guys. Sometimes it's hard to present and talk when there's nobody there.
This was a great
Thank you.
presentation. So much information. Thank you, Amy. Really good.
You're welcome. Maybe too much information, but again, if y'all know Julie, she'll tell you.
Yeah, wonderful. And I don't know if you see all the chats, Amy, but lots of thank yous. And oh, there's a question. Are services free?
From my office, absolutely, services are free. If they qualify financially, which is ballpark under 200% of federal poverty guidelines, if they're under that, if they don't have more than $10,000 worth of assets other than their house or their car, and if they pass our conflicts check.
Gotcha.
Because we
And
do a
then,
conflicts check just like any other law firm does. But yes, then our services are free. Somebody's raising their hand. Lindsay?
yeah,
Hey, Amy, thank you for the information. It was very helpful. Question about the since the services are generally free to the client, how are you all primarily funded?
So I deleted those slides when I was blowing through the first PowerPoint because I didn't think I had time. We are primarily funded through 3 avenues. One of them is LSC, which is Legal Services Corp, and that's federal money. One of them is through TAJF, which is Texas Access for Justice, so TAJF grants. And then the other one are specific grants, and they run the gamut. Part of our funding right now is an opioid grant, and we can provide services, any of our normal services, but it needs to be to somebody who's either a victim of opioid or their life was affected by it. So a mom whose kid was affected by opioid, and that's why they're in the situation that they're in, we can help them as well. We have a Capital One grant, and that's what this time will be billed to today, because we're trying to spread the idea about how to get your hands on your consumer credit stability. I do presentations at high schools to National Honor Society kids on the $100 pair of jeans that you buy on your credit card, and then you don't pay your bill for 3 months, and those jeans are now $150 jeans. And you should use your credit card for the purchase of a laptop and pay it off, not for dinner, not for McDonald's, not for jeans. How to build credit when you're a high school senior. We have had lots of grants through COVID for evictions, specific evictions. And so we get a lot of specific grants. And we get weird ones, Lindsay. When I first started, all of my funding was paid for by the VW grant. And so I was like, oh, like Volkswagen, thinking I was being cute. And they were like, no, exactly like Volkswagen. And it was right after the Volkswagen diesel scandal when they got fined by the court so much money for scamming people out with the whole diesel thing. And so they carved out some of that money that went to legal aid. And that was how I was paid for like a year. So it's all weird, but yeah, that's how we're paid.
Thank you. One additional just follow-up question. And my background is not in legal, but I'm just curious, if you had a client that was experiencing some sort of abuse or some sort of hardship that warranted your organization's services, what if the agency and or the abuser was from a state agency or something like that, but most of your funding is, if it's federal or state funded, would your firm still be able to help them, or is it more
Yeah,
person
the
to
only
person?
thing that would conflict you out is if we had helped, I mean, let's say it's a family law situation and it's baby daddy that's abusing mom or even the kids, we would not be able to help that family if the abuser had come to us and asked for services first, just like any other law firm. So a really savvy bad guy is going to go to all the really good law firms all over town, do a preliminary appointment, and then the wife can't go to any of those law firms because they're conflicted out. Same thing happens here. I don't think they do it intentionally here, but the same thing would happen here. If you come to us and we don't take your case, but we do an intake and we interview you and we give you advice and we send you on your way, you're now conflicted out. We can't help you. So that's where things come into play. And the flip of that example is husband and wife get divorced and there's abuse going on and we're representing the wife and we don't know who the abuser is. We've got his name and it's in our files, but we don't represent him. We've never represented him. We've never met him. 3 years down the road, he comes to us with the help for an eviction because he's now moved on, but he's getting help for an eviction. That's going to conflict him out. We're not going to be able to help him because we represented his wife in a divorce.
Thank
So-
you. Thank you.
Sure. Elva?
Yeah, I just had two quick things. One is when you were talking about the family password, Wrigley, and you said that your son would either use the password to tell you that it's really him or that he's really in trouble. And I thought, well, which is it? I mean, do you have two different passwords or?
No. So if he's been arrested and he's in jail and he calls me from jail and he says, I've been arrested and I really need help. I'm going to say, really? And he's going to say, yeah, don't forget to feed Wrigley. And I'm going to know he's telling me the truth because I've got him on the phone. But if I have left downtown Dallas late at night and I am calling him to say, I have made it home safely, I'm going to call him and say, hey, I made it home safe, but I won't forget to feed Wrigley. He's going to know something's up. So it would have to do with the purpose of the phone call. It's just the word that we use to go, wait, something's up, something's wrong. Because if
Okay.
I'm calling him to say, safe arrival, I'm home, but I tell him that I got to feed Wrigley, he knows there's somebody in my house. There's somebody that's walked in with me. I am saying something to him that tells him I'm not safe.
Ah, got it.
So it's
The
just that
other
the cover
question-
and in our family, we're the only two. We lost my husband about 3 years ago. So it's just us two. So as long as the two of us know how to use it,
Yeah.
you can use two for whichever way you want to go. But it's a friend of ours in the Navy SEALs used to, they had it and have it in Navy SEALs. There's a word. And
Ah.
if you use bingo or whatever the word is, I can't remember what it was when he would taught it to us. And we were like, oh, we need one of those. So that's what we came up with, was
Yeah,
feeding the
good
dog
idea.
Wrigley.
The other question was, you were talking about the extreme of guardianships, and I agree with you. It takes away so many civil rights, but it's absolutely necessary and beneficial in some cases. But you mentioned you were going to tell us about alternatives to guardianship, and you mentioned specific power of attorneys and directives to physicians or living wills, but were there other, I didn't really get any alternatives to guardianship.
So the ones that we would recommend that we believe are the most helpful is a power of attorney, a durable statutory power of attorney, which is a power of attorney for everything but healthcare stuff. Then you can get a power of attorney specifically for healthcare decisions.
Right.
And then the one that we use the most often is an assisted decision-making agreement. And that is when they are still in a position where they can make their own decisions, but they want help from their mom, their parent, their sister, whoever it is that they have designated on that document. So the doctor can talk to that person about it as well. So it's an
Okay, that's
assisted
the document
decision-making
that-
agreement.
That's the one I was needing the title of. Another end of life document that I just learned about in the last couple of weeks was appointment of agent for disposal of remains. I didn't realize that a healthcare power of attorney is at death is no longer valid. That it doesn't have any validity after death. And so if you think there might be any kind of, controversy between your kids about what's to be done, whether you'll be buried or cremated or whatever, there's this document. And of course, it is available for free on the law, whatever that website is.
TexasLawHelp.com
Yeah.
or .org. Yeah. I have heard of that before. And oftentimes when I will draft a will, that's one of the things I'll put in there. My wishes are that I be cremated or that I do this. But if a battle ensues, it's going to be the executor's decision as to what happens. But I have heard of that before, and I forget about it because I don't think about it.
Right.
And then the other thing that I use all the time, and has nothing to do with, a guardianship situation, but we use a TOD, a transfer on death deed, and we use that a lot.
I've done that for myself and advised the members of my ambassadors for aging well to do that. File it with the county recorder. I had to drive to Fort Worth because the sub courthouse here in Arlington couldn't take it. I had to go to the main courthouse.
Now in
downtown.
Denton, if you live in Denton, any courthouse will take it in Denton. In Tarrant
Interesting.
County, you got to go file it in the deed records.
Right. The other thing is the pay on death bank account, instead of adding a signatory to your checking account or your savings, if you do a pay on death, that is what I've done. Because I named my son, I added him to my bank account, not understanding later that he and his wife, they had an IRS situation where they owed some taxes. It didn't happen. The IRS didn't come after me, but they could have, because
Yep.
he was on my account. So
Yeah.
I switched to pay on death, which has no validity until I die, and they take
Right.
a death certificate to the bank.
So the way I explain the difference for that one to people is, if you make them a joint owner, it's like your husband and wife, whether you're best friends or your mother and son. Everything in that bank account belongs to you. Everything in that bank account belongs to him. If a creditor wants to come get it, if a bankruptcy wants to come get it, if they're
Right.
evaluating his credit, they're going to look at that bank account.
Yeah.
It may not be a bad thing, but if you do a POD account, and I had a client that happened to once before, we were trying to figure out what she paid on a regular basis. And so we thought we could go into the account and see what pay things she had set up and everything else. They would not give us access to any of the account information, just the money.
Huh.
So the payable on death was the minute she dies, we close the account, you get the check, but you don't get any information on the account. So we couldn't get any, has she made this payment? Has she made this payment? Has she made this payment?
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you.
So that's the only difference that you need to really know. And if you put somebody on your joint account, you better trust them.
Right.
Sure. Wow. Great. All right. And